Now we come to a new category in professional head-to-head racing NHRA competition this year. They call it the Pro Comp. The automobiles are determined for this category on the basis of weight, fuel, and engine displacement. And you'll see different kinds of cars running here. You'll see some dragsters, the rails, and you'll see some funny cars, but they will run head-to-head, and their position really here determined by the fact that they are the quickest in what we used to know as the old competition eliminator class. And right here we have Dale Armstrong running on the power side or nearest to you against Brad Anderson. And it is the dragster of Dale Armstrong who pulls it out at the top end to win in the semifinals in 6.99 seconds. So the pro competition eliminator class proving to be very popular here because of the disparity in the types of automobiles that are being used, but their performance is very comparable, thus they're running head-to-head. Now, Dale Armstrong out of Torrance, California, goes into the finals, and he'll be meeting the winner of the Ken Vaney-Dave Mack match here. Ken Vaney, incidentally, is a partner of Dale Armstrong. They make up a racing team. Dave Mack of Monrovia, Maryland, is still sitting back there on the roller trying to get his dragster started, and he's having very little luck with it. Hey, Superstars comes back tomorrow, returns over most of these ABC stations at 2 Eastern, 1 Central and Pacific time, and you'll see the stars from the winter sports, hockey, skiing, skating, and bowling. The final qualifying round for the Superstars tomorrow over most of these ABC stations. And now Dave Mack is unbuckled. He's getting out of it. They cannot get his car started. He is eliminated from the competition, so the veteran from Monrovia, Maryland, disappointed, obviously, and he is being rolled away from the strip here at the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds. So Ken Vaney, the partner of Dale Armstrong, is moved up on the start line, and he will take a solo run to move into the finals of the pro competition eliminator class, a new one that has everybody talking here at the NHRA season opener. Ken Vaney running pretty hard in that funny car because the low ET of this round gets the choice of lanes for the next round. But Dale Armstrong's going to have his choice in the finals against his partner, Ken Vaney. We come to the finals of the Pro Comp. Dale Armstrong of Torrance, California, and his partner, Ken Vaney. They'll be squaring off against each other. These automobiles were prepared in the same shop. Dale Armstrong is driving an A-fuel dragster, and Ken Vaney is in a double B funny car. Now, this is a new category, the Pro Comp, determined on weight, fuel, and the displacement of the engines. And, of course, their placement in this particular professional category, which is head-to-head racing, is determined by how well they have performed. Buster Couch brings them up now. Their partners running for the top money here in the Pro Comp, and the money will run right around $8,000 for the winner. Armstrong in the power lane nearest the camera. Good start. Armstrong has the lead at the top end. It is Armstrong, 6.89 seconds, 196.5 miles an hour. Vaney, 7.09 in his funny car, also 19650 miles an hour. Take another look at the finish in slow motion. Now you see Armstrong in the dragster, closest to the camera. Vaney in the funny car, and Armstrong the winner.
We now have an exciting new category, Pro Comp. And Dave, let's talk about that while we're watching the first racer stage.
This is a new category for 1974, Ted, and it matches up all types of cars. Here we see Wayne Ernst, and apparently he's having some problems as he's looking at his crew, and he doesn't look very happy, and taking off his fire gloves, you can figure there's something wrong. He drives what's known as an A-fuel dragster. It is an injected engine using nitromethane. His competition, who has the single run, is Dave Mack. He drives a gas-burning dragster, but is supercharged. They are handicapped on the basis of weight, engine size, and the type of fuel used. So you see all different types of cars. We'll be seeing matchups between dragsters and funny cars, supercharged cars against injected cars, and it really has provided some of the greatest racing seen yet in 1974.
In our second matchup, Ron Boggs in a double B funny car. He'll be going against Don Girardeau in a double A dragster.
Right, the double B funny car designation indicates that it is burning alcohol instead of its big brother that uses nitromethane, such as you saw a moment ago with Don Prudhomme and Tom McEwen and the like.
And a good race, a good close one at 7.22 for Boggs, a winning time, 194 miles an hour.
And now, remember, that car is running on alcohol. It is very similar, almost, in fact, it is identical to the nitro-burning cars, The only difference is the type of fuel used. You see how close the racing is. Here is Ron Boggs in the funny car, about a half a car length ahead of Don Gerardo, and Gerardo just almost caught him at that finish line point.
Jim Scott, a AA dragster, in the right lane, going against Dale Hall, who will be in the left lane.
He's driving what we call a B-fuel dragster, Dale Hall. That is the conventional front-engine style dragster, using an injected small block Chevrolet engine, using nitromethane for fuel. Jimmy Scott, the winningest driver thus far in Pro Comp, driving the supercharged dragster of Al Weiss from Canoga Park, California, on gasoline. Let's see how close this one is.
Another close one. 7:16 for Jim Scott, the winning time. 189 miles an hour. 7:32 the losing effort. 187 miles an hour.
The handicapping system here, by using the engine displacement, the car weight, and the type of fuel used, has worked out very well. Here we see a supercharged engine against an injected one, and less than 5 feet separating them at the finish line.
Ken Veeney in the right lane going against Jeg Coughlin, both driving Double B funny cars.
Jeg Coughlin is from Columbus, Ohio. He is driving a car powered by the late model Hemi. Veeney's Vega is obviously a Chevrolet Vega that is really brought down low to the ground, trying to cheat the wind as much as possible. It uses a Chevrolet engine, both cars powered by alcohol.
We have free stage. Should be an exciting race, and staged, and Coughlin almost loses it, swirling down the track, backed off when he saw he was having some difficulty.
Coughlin doing a great job of keeping that car from going into the guardrail, because with that fiberglass body, while he is protected very well, you can see right here, he heads right straight for it and just almost clips it with the tail of the car. The car swinging around now and starting to go into a skid, swings the other direction. He brings it under control, and Jeg Coughlin of Columbus doing a masterful driving job as Ken Veeney streaks on to a win at 7.30 seconds. That's the quarterfinal round of Pro Comp.
Moving now back to Pro Comp and round 3. Dave Mack in the right lane. You're taking a look at him right there against Ron Boggs, who will be in the left lane. And this is the new category this year. Different cars, different weights, but all matched up for good competition.
And these cars run on a heads-up basis. The handicapping is done by the weight, the cubic inch, and the type of fuel used, the cubic inch of the engine. Within the cars themselves, no handicap. It is a pro start, 1 amber, and then a green light, and then they leave. And tremendous racing in this category.
And this is why it's so exciting. Dave Mack, a 7.18 the winning time, 187 miles an hour, 7.25 for the losing effort at 191 miles an hour.
And this is another close race. The funny car against the dragster, and certainly Pro Comp has proved that cars can be handicapped on this basis, and you can't get much closer than that. I'll tell you, Ted, that is really close.
Double A dragster Jim Scott going against Double B funny car Ken Veeney. Veeney in the left lane, Scott in the right lane.
That's a shot of Veeney inside his funny car, the protective fire suit and the mask on. And Jimmy Scott, the car that won the Gator Nationals, Pro Comp, the Sports Nationals, the recent all-sportsman category race. He won that one. He is the winningest Pro Comp racer in the country today with that AA gas dragster owned by Al Weiss of Canoga Park.
And it's going to be Jim Scott, a time of 7:14, 189 miles.
Dave Mack from Monrovia, Maryland, and from Canoga Park, California, Jimmy Scott driving the Weiss and Scott car, the national record holder, so far been the best in the field. We'll see how it turns out.
The Pro Comp Eliminator, the final round, Jim Scott of Canoga Park, California, and he'll be going against Dave Mack of Monrovia, Maryland.
Both these cars are the same class, Ted. They are both gas dragsters, a little bit different approach. Scott using Al Weiss's early model Chrysler engine in the right-hand lane, the late Milodon aluminum engine in Dave Mack's car. Let's watch this. This is close. Oh, 7:23, the winning time to a losing 7:34. A bit off pace for both cars, but Jimmy Scott annexing another national title. He won the Gator Nationals, the Sports Nationals, and now the Spring Nationals. It's on the far lane, the lane away from us. You see Jimmy Scott getting there just a hairbreadth before Dave Mack.
Raceway Park at Indianapolis, Indiana, where the U.S. Nationals have drawn more than 1,500 entries, making this the largest auto race in the world. That's why 100,000 racing fans turn out each year for this classic.
This is the 20th annual NHRA U.S. Nationals Championships. And we've had a record number of entries competing for a record purse. Nearly $315,000 and 1,500 entries competing for that amount of money.
The Pro Comp, Ken Vaney.
This is Southern California, where early every winter the country's drag set gathers for a unique metal, plastics, rubber, noise, and smoke convention. The attraction? Head-to-head competition between the country's top drivers and their exotic cars in an effort to make time stand still. It's the National Hot Rod Association Winter National Drags from Pomona, California. And the Pro Comp final went to Don Enriquez, who wiggled his way home just ahead of a late-charging John Shoemaker to win $8,300. Pro Comp, Dale Armstrong of Torrance, California, beat Jed Coughlin of Columbus, Ohio. Most of these drivers will be headed next week for the World Finals at the Ontario Motor Speedway in Southern California.
Pro Comp Eliminators semifinal round. Dale Armstrong, the national champion. He drives the Alcoholic. It's named that because it runs on alcohol, methanol, rather than nitromethane. He's matched up against the dragster of John Shoemaker, Ken Vaney against Brad Anderson in the other pairing for the semifinals. Pro Comp using dragsters, altereds. They're handicapped on the basis of weight, the type of fuel used, and the size of the motor. They leave the starting line together. It is heads-up racing from the starting line. Dragster versus funny car. Let's watch. And Dale Armstrong from Torrance, California, a tremendous run, the quickest of the day, 6.55 seconds, speed over 212 miles an hour for that alcohol-burning funny car as he defeats John Shoemaker. The other matchup, Ken Vaney in the far lane. In the near lane, Brad Anderson. Anderson getting a little bit out of shape, drifting near that guardrail, and Ken Vaney streaks through. What a matchup in the finals of Pro Comp Eliminator. Dale Armstrong driving the Alcoholic, two-time national champion. He is matched up against a former teammate, Ken Vaney. Vaney, formerly from California, now living in Wadsworth, Ohio. Armstrong from Torrance, California. Both cars, the double B funny car class. That means they're running on alcohol, methanol, rather than the nitromethane used by the cars competing in Funny Car Eliminator. Elapsed times, Dale Armstrong's got the quickest thus far at a 6.55 seconds. The quickest for Ken Vaney, a tenth of a second slower at 6.65. It's anybody's race here in the finals. Dale Armstrong, two-time national champion, at the wheel of the Alcoholic, matched up against this man, Ken Vaney from Wadsworth, Ohio. This, the finals of Pro Comp Eliminator. It'll be Armstrong in the far lane, Vaney in the near lane. The tree will count down with one amber light and then green. It's heads-up racing between the two double B funny cars in the finals of Pro Comp Eliminator. Ken Vaney, knowing he's the slower of the two cars, took a chance on the Christmas tree and lost. The gamble didn't pay off as Dale Armstrong is your world champion. The top of the category in sportsman racing is Pro Comp. It is a one amber, a heads-up race. This is Ken Vaney in the far lane with a funny car from Wadsworth, Ohio. His competition, Bill Wallace, who had some problems. He was driving the dragster. Ken Vaney, your Pro Comp winner. Pro Comp, the top of the line, a heads-up start, no handicap here. These are two alcohol-burning funny cars, very similar to their nitro-burning brothers that we've seen earlier. Ken Vaney in the far lane, Kevin Siebert in the tower lane. Vaney's supercharger whistling through the quarter mile, picking up his third win of the year, is Ken Vaney. Actually his fourth. He won the Winter Nationals, the Gator Nationals, and the Cajun Nationals, and now the Spring Nationals champion, Ken Vaney.
In the Pro Comp category, Dale Armstrong of Torrance, California, went against Dave Settles over from Euless, Texas. Armstrong fouled, giving a win to Settles.
The top of the line in sportsman racing Pro Comp Eliminator. Here are two dragsters, very much like their Top Fuel brothers, except they run on alcohol instead of nitromethane. Brent Bramley from Calgary, Alberta, Canada,
His competition hails from Bakersfield, California, Doug Kerhulis with the Chevrolet-powered car. A pro start, one amber light, then green, heads-up racing all the way to the finish line. Something braking on Doug Kerhulis' car, something braking for Brent Bramley, but Bramley able to coast through the quarter mile, and with that takes home to Calgary, Alberta, Canada, the 1976 World Champion honors in Pro Comp Eliminator.
David, it's great to be back in the lush green countryside of central Ohio. Today's action is going to include the Pro Comp category. It's the newest in the NHRA lineup, the only one of the sportsman categories that races on a heads-up basis. Tremendously popular with the racers and the fans because of the variety, all heads up. Here you see a dragster, a front-engine machine. There's no supercharger, so it's allowed to use the potent nitromethane fuel. Only without a supercharger or a blower can you use nitro in Pro Comp. Moving along to a supercharged dragster. The class officially called AA alcohol dragster. The racers like to call them AA bads. It's a supercharged motor, but limited to straight alcohol in the fuel tank, no nitro. They use an extra gear in the transmission to make up for the lack of raw horsepower without the nitromethane. This same type of motor, as we see in the AA bad dragster, also in this funny car. Virtually identical, same transmission setup, alcohol again in the tank, but the funny car is allowed to weigh a little less. And the fans really love it when the alcohol dragsters and the alcohol funny cars meet each other on the starting line, heads up in Pro Comp. Let's meet some of the guys that drive these cars.
Dale Armstrong, Torrance, California.
Always the man to beat. Has won the category in every class imaginable. Two-time U.S. Nationals champion, 76 World Champion.
Hi, I'm Tom Ridings from Long Beach, California.
A 22-year-old student, Ridings is a protege of Dale Armstrong. Only racing a year and a half, qualifying #1 is the achievement of his career.
Don Gerardo, Monroeville, Indiana.
1974 produced a competition eliminator U.S. Nationals title for Gerardo. He stepped up in '75 to the World Championship in Pro Comp.
My name's Simon Menzies, and I'm from Torrance, California.
Simon began his career as a car owner for Dale Armstrong, later took to the cockpit, and with this brand new Corvette is looking for his first national title. We'll see those drivers and more in action when we come back.
Spring Nationals with the first round of Pro Comp Eliminator. The first pair of cars we see, that classic struggle between funny car and dragster, both of them utilizing methanol for fuel, supercharged engines. It's Joe Amato in the funny car from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, and Dale Armstrong from Torrance, California. Leaving the line together, Armstrong beginning to pull a bit of a lead. And crowd favorite Dale Armstrong taking a big win in the first round. The time for Dale Armstrong, 6.87 seconds. As we watch in slow motion, you see Joe Amato starting to drift around on the track. That causing just enough of a delay in his time to allow Dale Armstrong to pull about a 1 to 2 car length lead at the finish and take the win at a speed of over 202 miles an hour. Joe Amato holding top speed of the meet at over 209 in qualifying, going out in the first round to Dale Armstrong. Another matchup of dragster versus funny car. Here's the low qualifier, Tom Ridings. He's from Long Beach, California, from Granby, Connecticut, with the front engine dragster. One of the few in competition today is Dale Hall. A great start for Dale Hall, and this is a close race. And Dale Hall takes the win, upsetting the low qualifier. Hall with his small block Chevrolet-powered front-engine alcohol-burning dragster. You see it right there, just a bit of a head start at the starting line, and that's enough to give him the win. The times for Dale Hall, 6.91 seconds elapsed time. Here at the finish line, you'll see what difference it makes. As they come to the finish line, Dale Hall just a wheel length ahead. Tom Ridings, a quicker time at 6.83 seconds. Hall getting out of his fire suit, awaiting the word from his crew to determine who won the race. Dale Hall from Granby, Connecticut. The next pair of cars, the world champion from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Brent Bramley in the dragster. Simon Menzies in the Corvette funny car. The horsepower of Simon Menzies pulling out the win. 6.83 seconds, his speed 198 miles an hour. You see, he had Brent Bramley, the world champion, defeated by a little over a car length at the finish line. In this pair, two funny cars, Williams and Bowl. J. Marlis Williams from Chelsea, Michigan, against London, Ontario, Canada's Frank Hawley and the Hawley family. Side by side, two of the finest funny cars in Pro Comp streak to the finish line. And it is Frank Hawley, the Canadian, 6.84 seconds, 200 miles an hour. He had a big lead over J. Marlis Williams at the finish line. The only altered in competition in Pro Comp Eliminator here at the Spring Nationals, driven by Ron Boggs, hometown boy from Columbus, Ohio. His competition, Don Woosley from Winchester, Kentucky. Woosley, a former Sports Nationals champion. Boggs aiming for his first national event title with that short wheelbase roadster, and really a crowd favorite here at the Spring Nationals. Boggs with a big victory in round number one, 6.73 second elapsed time. That's the low ET of the first round of eliminations, and you can see him just pulling away from Don Woosley. Boggs recording 201 miles an hour at the finish line. Dennis Forcelli from Minneapolis, Minnesota, driving his AA dragster on alcohol against the funny car, Dick Titsworth from Sylvania, Ohio, also supercharged, running methanol for fuel. Both cars inching into the staging beams, getting ready for that head start. Side by side, they leave the line together. And at the finish line, a tremendous race as Dick Titsworth takes the win, 6.82 seconds to a losing 6.89 seconds for Forcelli. Here you can see in stop action how close it was, just a few inches separating the two cars as Dick Titsworth advances into round two. This is Terry Yates from Rochester, Indiana, doing his burnout. All these cars in competition doing burnouts. He's matched against the funny car of Don Gerardo out of Monroeville, Indiana. In slow motion, we'll watch the alcohol-burning dragster do the burnout. You can see the tires grow in height as the centrifugal force spins them out and the smoke coming off them as the rubber begins to burn and get hot, providing the traction necessary to put these cars through a quarter mile at over 200 miles an hour. Yates and Gerardo side by side at mid-course. Gerardo pulling out the win at the finish line, 6.80 seconds elapsed time. His speed a whopping 206 miles an hour for Don Gerardo of Monroeville, Indiana. The final pair in round number one, Butch Osmond out of Leavittsburg, Ohio, is matched against Robert Gottschalk from Toledo, Ohio. Here you can see both drivers pulling their mounts into the staging beams. The trio go green, they'll leave the line together. Let's watch. At the finish line, Butch Osmond from Leavittsburg, Ohio, taking the win, 6.89 seconds. His speed, 197 miles an hour. And Robert Gottschalk trailing by about 2 car lengths. In slow motion, you can see how close the racing is as they leave the starting line together. And actually, most of the race is not decided until past the midway point here at the Spring Nationals. As the drivers get ready for round number 2 in Pro Comp Eliminator, let's go down to trackside and Steve Evans.
Dave, it's interesting to note going into round 2 of Pro Comp that no particular type of car seems to have an advantage. We have 3 dragsters left, 4 funny cars, and the 1 AA altered remains in competition. Now that our #1 qualifier was eliminated on the hole shot, that being Tom Ridings of California, the crowd seems to be going with the unusual AA altered of Ron Boggs, and he's the quickest car in the field now going into round 2.
And this is the AA altered of Ron Boggs from Columbus, Ohio. A Model T roadster body, highly modified, a Donovan engine, supercharged, running methanol for fuel, making up this handful known as a AA altered in Pro Comp Eliminator here at the Spring Nationals. Boggs' competition comes from London, Ontario, Canada, the Double B funny car of Frank Hawley and the Hawley family. Here in slow motion, we can watch Ron Boggs as he has to drive this car to keep it straight as the rear tires are spinning, getting them hot, getting ready for his pass down the quarter mile. The funny car of Frank Hawley, powered by a 500 cubic inch engine, also supercharged, also burning methanol. The Keith Black racing engine in the funny car. A tremendous race. Hawley drifting close to the center. And at the finish line by inches, it's Ron Boggs in the altered, moving one more step closer to this championship here at the Spring Nationals. Boggs is elapsed time 6:88, and here you see in slow motion stop action, it is literally a matter of inches as electronically the winner picker says Ron Boggs there first. The next pair, funny car versus dragster, Dale Armstrong against Dick Titsworth, and a red light for Armstrong. Titsworth, the funny car, moves ahead in eliminations, 6.84 seconds, 202 miles an hour, and a dejected Dale Armstrong through for the day in competition in Pro Comp Eliminator. The old bugaboo of a red light left at the starting line. This is Dale Hall, the only front-engine dragster left in Pro Comp Eliminator, powered by a small block Chevrolet, also supercharged and running on alcohol. The competition, the rear-engine dragster of Butch Osmond. Hall there first, 6.88 seconds, his speed over 201 miles an hour. With a little Chevrolet engine in that front engine dragster. A pair of Corvettes. Don Gerardo, former world champion from Monroeville, Indiana. Simon Menzies, hailing out of Torrance, California. The Corvette owned by Jim Jackson. Both cars leaving the line together. And something going wrong with Gerardo's car as Menzies takes the win, 6.93 seconds. His speed over 196 miles an hour. The small block Chevrolet front engine dragster matched up against the funny car of Dick Titsworth. On the other side of the bracket, Simon Menzies driving Jim Jackson's funny car against the altered of Ron Boggs. Pro Comp Racing designed to allow different types of cars and engine combinations to compete heads up against one another, and it's depicted no better than it has been here at the Spring Nationals. 39-year-old Dick Titsworth, a machinist by trade during the week, drag racer on the weekend, against Dale Hall, Hall driving the front-engine Chevy dragster. A great race at the finish as Dale Hall pulls it out in the last few feet. The crew heading down to get the car, head back to the pits, get it ready for the finals. Dale Hall from Granby, Connecticut, making it into the finals in Pro Comp Eliminator. You see right here he begins to deviate from the straight and true path down the quarter mile, but gets it back under control and pulls the win out in just the last few feet. The crowd favorite in the far lane has got to be that 1923 Model T roadster-bodied altered car. Ron Boggs driving it. His competition is Jim Jackson's Corvette. Simon Menzies, drifting close to the center line, has to back out of it. Ron Boggs on an easy single moves in to face Dale Hall in the finals, a fine 6.79 second, 200-mile-an-hour run. The finals of Pro Comp Eliminator, a front-engine dragster, 34-year-old Dale Hall. He runs a machine shop during the week, is against the crowd favorite, and that's this 1923 Model T Roadster driven by Ron Boggs of Columbus, Ohio. Boggs, the hometown favorite. The car alone has made him the crowd favorite. Inching into the staging beams, let's watch. the crowd just loving every second of it. Pro Comp Eliminator, 6.77 seconds, 202 miles an hour at the finish line. Dale Hall, a very respectable 6.86 seconds, 203 miles an hour. But right at the start and in the first half of the course, Ron Boggs pulls it out to take Pro Comp Eliminator at the Spring Nationals, his first ever national title. Steve?
You won one for the hometown fans and one for the altered contingent all over the country. It's going to cheer up every altered around to know they can be competitive.
Yeah, and for all the people that's helped me for the last 10 years.
What are you going to do with the money? You won a lot of money.
Put it in the car.
Your wife's going to be real happy.
I'm not married.
You're not married? Oh, well, you get a lot of nice things you can do with that money. Here comes your crew, and they are really happy. You got enough people, you think, on your crew?
Yeah, we kept picking them up as the race went on.
You got some pretty ladies. You must be a happy bachelor.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let them congratulate you, and we'll do it one more time.
Sees a pair of alcohol-burning supercharged dragsters. This is 18-year-old Scott Winnie of Spring City, Pennsylvania. Interesting point here about Scott. He took over the driving chores from his dad, Walt, after Walt won a Gator Nationals championship. Matched against Scott is Ken Veeney, two-time champion at the Summer Nationals. He is, in fact, the defending champion, having won Pro Comp Eliminator here the past 2 years in a row. They leave the line together. And something going wrong with Scott Winnie's car. It is Ken Veeney, the Ford-powered dragster across the finish line. 676, 201 miles an hour, the winning run.
Feeling to it. Guys and gals drag racing because they love it. Strictly sportsman racers. The first category of competition we're going to be seeing is Pro Comp. They are the quickest and fastest cars here at the Sports Nationals. There's dragsters, there's funny cars, and it's the only category that races heads up here today. Before we get to the Pro Comp action, let's meet some of the drivers.
Hi, I'm Ken Veeney from Wadsworth, Ohio.
Hi, I'm Jim Archer from Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Hi, my name is Kenny Cook. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
Dale Armstrong, Torrance, California. I drive a AA dragster.
And we saw Dale Armstrong go down to defeat in first round racing in Pro Comp. This now marks the start of round number 2 in Pro Comp racing. Here's Ben Griffin driving the Carroll Brothers car from Dallas, Texas. Alongside of him, the funny car of Ken Veeney. Quite a story behind this funny car, a brand new car. First time it's ever been down the racetrack is here at the Sports Nationals. Pro Comp racing, a broad cross-section of cars, dragsters versus funny cars. The dragsters can be either supercharged or injected. Ben Griffin's car is injected, running on nitromethane. Ken Veeney's funny car is supercharged on alcohol. Leaving the line together, but Veeney pulling a quick lead and holds on to the finish. 6.74 seconds and a new top speed record at 208 miles an hour for Ken Veeney and his brand new funny car. Here in slow motion, we see Veeney beginning to build up his lead in the last half of this race. And with a 2-car length lead, gets to the finish line first. Two similar cars, Bill Wallace in the near lane. Wallace out of Middletown, Ohio. Willard Buff from Baytown, Texas, driving this Gold Digger entry, was the Pro Comp champion at the recent Cajun Nationals. You saw the action right here on Diamond P Sports. These two cars very similar, alcohol-burning dragsters, supercharged engines, but running on alcohol. This is the top of the line in sportsman racing. We call it Pro Comp. And two of the men ready to go. And a red light start for Willard Buff. Bill Wallace automatically the winner. Buff getting there first, but it's to no avail as back at the starting line, he left a big red light. Bill Wallace runs 6.82 seconds at over 202 miles an hour. Here in dramatic slow motion, you see just how it happened. Willard Buff in the far lane leaves just a hair too soon. As you see there, the red light comes on, and then the green for Bill Wallace. A pair of funny cars from London, Ontario, Canada, Frank Hawley, the Hawley family century, to be in the far lane. Gary Gwynn in in the near lane knocked out the defending Grace Cup champion, Dale Armstrong, in round number 1 action. Gwynn from Miami having one of the best days of his long career. Both cars staging very carefully as they roll into the staging beams. They're actually light beams stretching across the starting line. Jerry Gwynn in the near lane, Frank Hawley in the far lane. Hawley now into his proper staging position. Here comes Jerry Gwynn. When they're set, the switch is thrown, and it's race time. Frank Hawley with lots of problems. Frank Hawley out of control and crosses right behind Jerry Gwynn. Gwynn rents the race, both to the finish line as Frank Hawley losing control, crossing the center line, which automatically disqualified him. Here in slow motion, we see it once again. Hawley's car making a violent move just as it leaves the starting line. Moves right behind Jerry Gwynn in the same lane.
All right, here we go.
Let's go down now to Steve at the finish line area.
Jerry Gwynn of Miami, rather frightening race with Hawley, at least from our vantage point. I'm sure it was even scarier inside the car.
Yeah, he came over in my lane, but everything was under control.
Did you think there was a possibility of him hitting you?
Not really, no. I thought that we could get by each other all right.
How close was it?
Plenty close. I don't know how close it was.
Well, you're doing awfully well. In fact, the funny cars in general are doing well today when everybody says the dragster's a lot more consistent.
Yeah, that's true. There's going to be a funny car in the final, and I hope it's us.
Okay, so does your family here. Good luck.
All right, thank you very much.
The final race of round number 2 in Pro Comp Eliminator, Cook and Thorne. This is Kenny Cook from Louisville, Kentucky. This is the defending champion here at the Sports Nationals. He comes from Los Alamos, New Mexico. That's Jim Archer. Archer's car is powered by one of the injected nitro-burning engines, while Kenny Cook, his car's super light, using the small block Chevrolet engine. The way the rules are written, allowing all types of engines and all types of fuel to be used in Pro Comp racing. The difference is the size of the engine, the weight of the car, and the type of the fuel used, which allows this very, very close racing in the heads-up category of Pro Comp. Graphic detail, we see those light beams across the track. Archer into the final beam and lead the line together. Something going wrong for Jim Archer. Kenny Cook with the lowest elapsed time of the day, 6.71 seconds. His speed, 202 miles an hour. The defending champion out of it here at the Sports Nationals. In the first round of Pro Comp Eliminator, the Golden Gator, driven by Chase Knight and owned by Al Leitert, went out of competition. Earlier, Steve was with the team as they were presented the Fram Best Engineered Car Award.
Dave, for a change, as our Fram Corporation judges strolled through the pits looking for best engineered car, they didn't have to seek out the subtleties. It was plenty obvious right on top of the engine, 3 superchargers on the Golden Gator from Fort Lauderdale. Here's driver Chase Knight to explain it.
Steve, we use the conventional supercharger to get the car moving. Once the clutch is out, there's a load on the motor, the turbochargers take over and carry it on down the track.
How much money and time's gone into this project?
Steve, there's 6 years in it right now, and money, you could say $70,000 if you wanted.
And it runs well, qualified in the top half of the field. Back to you, Dave, and more Sports Nationals competition.
Thank you, Steve, and a tough break for Chase Knight and Al Leitert and the Golden Gator. Going into the wall in the first round caused some damage to the car. It's not total. It will be back running stronger than ever. 4 cars remain in the Pro Comp semifinals. 2 funny cars. That's Jerry Gwynn against Ken Veeney, while 2 dragsters also remain. Kenny Cook against Bill Wallace. The funny car of Baby Huey. That's Jerry Gwynn. In the far lane, in the near lane, is Ken Veeney. Veeney has a brand new Dodge Challenger, debuted at this event. We're back into Pro Comp, where it's 1 amber light, then green, heads up racing to the finish line. Jerry Gwynn losing traction momentarily, and that was enough to put him out of the race. Ken Veeney, a fine 6.78 second, 207 mile an hour run to put him into the final. Bill Wallace, the dragster, powered by the heavy engine. He's against Kenny Cook. Cook's car using the small block Chevrolet. Both are supercharged, both running on alcohol. The difference here, the extra weight demanded because of the heavy engine. The Bill Wallace. Kenny Cook has lower lap time of racing today, and Bill Wallace knew it. He gambled on the tree, and a red light for Wallace. Kenny Cook, 6.79 seconds, 196-mile-an-hour run. Cook just 100th of a second slower than Ken Veeney. In slow motion, you can see Bill Wallace move just a hair before Kenny Cook, and that was enough to get him the red light. It'll be Cook against Veeney. Here's Steve.
Dave, we're taking a moment here to relax with Ken Veeney just prior to the final in Pro Comp. I don't know how we can relax in all this heat, but we're doing our best. Ken, you come in here with a brand new car. You built the body yourself, I understand, the chassis yourself, a motor full of borrowed parts, and here you are.
Got lucky.
I don't think so.
I've raced before. I had a good I had a pretty good idea how I wanted to do it again, and had a good idea where to start. You know, because I had done them before.
You said you just simply couldn't afford to buy the components, so you had to build them.
Well, right. I mean, I didn't have the money to go racing again, and I really like to race, and I like to race funny cars, and the dragster is a little easier to run. It's easier to race against a dragster, but the dragster, the funny car being more popular, you can match race it and make a little money with it that way too.
Well, you've got them shaking their heads again.
The funny car of Ken Veeney against the dragster of Kenny Cook. And what a story behind this. Ken Veeney, many-time national champion, built himself a new car. He brought it to this, the Sports Nationals, debuted here in national event competition, and is in the finals with the funny car. Kenny Cook in the small block Chevrolet red lights away his chance, and it is Ken Veeney the winner. Kenny Cook got to the finish line first, but he left the starting line first. In slow motion, you see him leave just a hair ahead of Ken Veeney. The foul start giving the win automatically to Veeney. And what a Cinderella story there is. Ken Veeney from Wadsworth, Ohio, started his racing in a funny car. He's back again. Once again, Steve Evans.
Well, homemade car, borrowed parts and all. Ken Veeney, as he crawls out from under the body he built, wins the Sports Nationals. You didn't know you won, did you?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't know I won. I just seen him out there, and I had no idea I won. But I'm sure happy. This isn't the way I like to win, but I accept. I've never won the Sports Nationals, and I'm sure glad I did.
How many national titles now?
Including the Cajuns, it'd be 9.
Well, your wife, who loves to celebrate so much in the starting line, she was very despondent. She didn't see the red light, I don't think.
I don't know. I can't believe it. I mean, I couldn't even believe it.
Well, believe it. Congratulations. Ken Veeney, our Pro Comp champ for 78 here at Bowling Green.
The racing's over here at the Sports Nationals, but NHRA's technical department says there may be a bigger story yet. We'll be back with that in just a moment. $8,500. This now the final in the top of the line in the sportsman category racing. Bogey Kell, the wheel of the supercharged Donovan-powered dragster, running on alcohol. In the far lane, Dale Hall from Granby, Connecticut. Hall's car powered by a small block Chevrolet, one of the older style dragsters using the front engine position. In Pro Comp racing, this is just like the professionals in that it is one amber light, then green. And something going wrong with Dale Hall. Bogey Kell taking the win. The first major event victory for the Attala, Alabama-based driver. This is now the top of the line of sportsman category racing. Pro Comp. Here's Dale Hall. Hall's car somewhat unique. It uses a small block Chevrolet engine, supercharged, running on alcohol, but it's a front engine dragster. Back a few years ago, every dragster in competition was a front engine car. Then in 1971, made successful by Don Garland's, the rear engine design took over, is used in all categories where dragsters are legal. And Dale Hall with a big lead. Something going wrong. Hall out of control. Almost crosses in front of Dale Armstrong. Hall finally gets it back into his own lane. Something going wrong with the car. Dale Armstrong, the Pro Comp champion. In instant replay, we see once again the big lead built up by Dale Hall in his small block Chevrolet. Something begins to go wrong. You see the car making a violent move towards the center line. He crosses it. That would have put him out of competition anyway, but Dale Armstrong the winner. Here again, Steve Evans.
You said you didn't think they had final rounds with you in it anymore?
No, God, I haven't got by the first round this year yet.
This man has won Pro Comp in every conceivable type car. Funny car, dragster, roadster, you name it. Mr. Pro Comp, AA Dale Armstrong, and here comes one happy crew. Okay, back to you, David.
Felder wins competition eliminator. And finally, this is Pro Comp Heads Up Racing, supercharged on alcohol. John Samalik won Pro Comp eliminator over Joey Severance. Steve's with John as he got out of his car.
The biggest upset of this entire U.S. Nationals event is John Samalik, your first big win. You beat the best in the world.
My partner got to be in here. He kept that motor together for me.
This is the first national event win for a small block Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Lots have tried.
Yeah, we've had 5 times in the finals.
During the 4 days of this Gator Nationals, and as they ran their finals, the sun was slowly setting. In Pro Comp eliminator, Joe Amato of Old Forge, Pennsylvania, took home some $9,000 as he debuted a new car. Through the course, and that leads to the top of the line Pro Comp eliminator. We've looked at Charlie Smith. He's a 34-year-old research technician from Groves, Texas. He is driving a car that a year ago was running with an injected fuel-burning engine, also in the Pro Comp category, but the car itself dates much further back than that. The front engine design going out several years ago. But Charlie Smith parlaying a lot of luck, a couple of red lights, and a good run in the semifinals to earn his way to meet Wayne Clapp in the sophisticated Ford dragster. And lots of problems with Charlie Smith. Starter Buster Katz looking at competition director Steve Gibbs. They both say, shut it off, Charlie, your day is done, as oil pouring from the motor on the starting line. The danger just too great for Charlie Smith to let him go. And a tough break as Wayne Clapp, driving Dean Thompson's Ford-powered dragster, wins the top of the line in the sportsman category, Pro Comp eliminator at the Cajun Nationals. And Charlie Smith, his great day in the sun, finally coming to rest here in the darkness of this rain-delayed Cajun Nationals Championship. He'll be heading back to Groves, Texas with some fond memories of this event. We'll be back with the Pro Finals in just a moment. Pro Comp eliminator, a heads-up category featuring all types of cars, but 2 dragsters made it to the finals. Joe Amato, winner of the Gator Nationals with a modern type car, the rear-engine dragster. Dale Hall from Granby, Connecticut, a former Grand National champion, driving the older style front-engine dragster with a very small engine, about 350 cubic inches of Chevrolet, almost 500 cubic inches of Hemi in the late model rear-engine dragster, and it's a red light start for Amato, which automatically gives the win to Dale Hall, but Dale gets there first anyway. Amato's wife very disappointed as she saw her husband lose to Dale Hall. The red light at the starting line indicating instant defeat. Watching again, just a few hundredths of a second too quick was Joe Amato.
Dale Hall, congratulations, our Pro Comp champion. You knew you were in tough against Amato. He'd been quicker all day.
Joe's a tough boy to beat. He's excellent. Good driver and consistent. And I'm so happy I can't believe it.
Did you see the red light?
No, I didn't. I don't think Joe knew the red light came on either because he ran the car all the way through, too.
This is only about the 3rd time that a small block Chevrolet has won in a Pro Comp championship.
Well, we won one in '74. Some good friends of ours, Smokey Samalik, won last year, and then we got this one.
Well, congratulations. This front-mounted car is no dinosaur.
Thank you very much.
In sportsman drag racing 4-wheel style, Pro Comp eliminator, that's the top of the line. In the near lane, Billy Williams has been running exceptionally strong throughout this entire event, consistent 650 elapsed times. His competition from Prineville, Oregon, is Joey Severance. He's about a tenth of a second off the pace. According to previous elapsed times, this is the finals for the title U.S. Nationals champion. And Billy Williams out first and pulling a big lead in the middle of the course. And at the finish line, not to be headed, is Billy Williams. Williams from Torrance, 6.57 seconds elapsed time. His speed, 209 miles an hour on this alcohol-burning supercharged dragster. This win moves Billy Williams to the #1 spot in the Grace Cup points chase.
Billy Williams has won 4 national events now, but the U.S. Nationals has got to be your greatest thrill.
Right. It's the best one. I don't even know what to say.
You simply overpowered him with those 650s all day.
The car ran really well, consistent.
It sure did. Were you concerned with Joey? In fact, you built the motor in Joey's car.
I was really concerned. You even borrowed a blower from me today.
Okay, just about the richest guy now in Pro Comp, and it needs to be that way for Billy Williams because he does it for a living. Champion at the U.S. Nationals.
Everybody driving just about the same. A slight hole shot going to Billy Williams. Plus a little bit better lap time. So Billy Williams, after a lot of hard work, if you were here for qualifying, you remember Billy particular.
Call him the Munchkin or 640 Shorty. He doesn't care. He's got a #1 in his car. He's the world champion and now the Gator Nationals champion. Congratulations. This one came tough.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I did. I didn't think I was going to make it. I almost even waived the points for it.
Is that right? This race has eluded you, even though you won 6 national events or something like that last year.
6, yeah.
And here's the man that you just defeated. In fact, you built the engine in his car, Willard Buff, and a great drive for you, too, Willard. He's a good one, isn't he?
Got a good teacher. Can't deny that.
Okay, 2 happy competitors, but this is the champion of the Gator Nationals, Billy Williams.
The Pro Comp Eliminator's got a hometown favorite from Aramie, Louisiana. A suburb of New Orleans is A.J. Sarantine. He's in the far lane. In the near lane is Gene Bowl from Baytown, Texas. Both cars utilizing Chevrolet-type engines, running on alcohol in Pro Comp Eliminator. And Sarantini with low elapsed time of the entire event for Pro Comp Eliminator, 6.58 seconds. His speed, 208 miles an hour, winning his first ever national event title. Eliminator, the top of the line of the sportsman categories. And this driver, Brian Raymer, out of Denver, Colorado, was the man you saw put his dragster right into the bullseye, into the catch net at the finish, but yet here he is in the final against Ken Vini. Ken Vini has been in the finals 13 times prior to this Spring Nationals event, and he would like to take home another of the famed NHRA Oscars. But Brian Raymer has low elapsed time of the meet thus far in Pro Comp racing at 6.55 seconds. These dragsters very similar to Top Fuel racers, except they run on straight methanol, no nitromethane fuel allowed. Brian Raymer and Ken Vini, the final stage of the final race in Pro Comp Eliminator. Vini beginning to lose ground as his car wavering from the center line of his lane, and it is Brian Raymer, a real success story, as he wins the Pro Comp Eliminator title at 6.66 seconds. Here you see Ken Vini drifting out of control and Brian Raymer streaking for the finish line in the win. At the turnaround area, here's Steve Evans.
Brian Raymer, did you ever think when you drilled the target on that net that you'd be right here and headed for the winner's circle?
I seriously had my doubts. I guarantee you. I was, in fact, that was my first thought about going through the net. It's going to make it hard to get to the final.
You amazed everybody making repairs. How'd you do that?
A lot of help.
Really?
A lot of help from a lot of different racers, including the people we beat.
Is that right? Well, Ken Vini's a tough one. This makes 2 national events this year for you, right?
That's right.
And runner-up last year at the World Finals. Congratulations. Brian Raymer from the high country of Denver proves he can do it at sea level, too. Here at the Fall Nationals, we're now going into what's called the Pro Comp category, and it's just that. It's kind of a half pro, half sportsman. Some guys make their living at it, others just do it for the sport. And these cars are restricted now to alcohol for fuel. There's none of the expensive potent nitromethane allowed in order to keep the costs down and the breakage to a minimum. And the car you're looking at right now will be in this first race in the quarterfinals. It is the world champion, Billy Williams from Torrance, California. A good look at the aluminum Donovan racing engines with custom-made aluminum heads, the injector on top with the scoop, the wing on the back to push down on those rear tires for more traction as the car
achieves greater and greater speeds. Without the wing, it would just smoke the tires and probably crash. Just couldn't stay hooked up at all to the pavement. So it will be Billy Williams up against a man who has trekked all the way from Anchorage, Alaska to be with us here, our ESPN coverage of NHRA's Fall Nationals. The last stop on the Pro Tour of 10 races. Lunsford now sneaking out from behind his truck. The motor started. They don't have quite the staccato, groundbreaking sound of the Fuelers or the funny cars, but racing can be closer in this category than any other. They still go through the burnout ritual. Lunsford, first to do so. And Billy Williams turning his tires into a moving fog bank. Williams won 5 important national events last year, amassed probably $150,000 in prize money. Williams and Kasanji in the team. And Williams getting back very quickly. It's a cool afternoon, and Williams wants to keep those tires warm. That's the prime purpose of the burnout. And in that they do not have the awesome low-end power of the top fuel cars, the Pro Comp dragsters use an extra gear, another transmission, so it's a 3-speed. The transmission's located behind the between the engine and the rear axle, and they shift them at just the punch of a button. Bob and Mary Lunsford in the building supply business in Anchorage, Alaska. Bob has been racing for many years and was really one of the top qualifiers. Lunsford qualifying at a 673. He survived the first round with a 675. Billy Williams has been quicker yet, though, qualified number 2 at a 662. So the favorite is in the near lane. Billy Williams, the number 1, designating him as world champion from the preceding year, 79. Here we go. They leave right together, Bob Lunsford and Billy Williams. But it looks to be all Williams on the other end of the racetrack. It is by several car lengths. Billy Williams with low elapsed time of the event for the Pro Comp category, 6.59 seconds, 204 miles an hour. Appeared to be a dead even start. Anytime they carry the front end, the front wheels like you just saw, that means they are really hooked up, as the drag racers call it. No tire slippage whatsoever, and going to come up with a good number. In Williams' case, the best we have seen in this category during qualifying or eliminations, a 6.59 at 204 miles per hour. Billy Williams at the finish line first. Moving along in this quarterfinal round of Pro Comp, here is a local car, Jerry Goddard from the beautiful community of Olympia, Washington, just down the interstate away. And from Canada, Jim Johnson in the far lane, St. Albert, Alberta, Canada. A little different engine combination for Jim Johnson. It's what they call a Rodec power plant. It's patterned after a Chevrolet, but has absolutely no provisions for water jackets, no cooling whatsoever. And the alcohol, menthanol, whatever you want to call it, fuel that these drivers use in their tank burns so cool that they really don't need any water circulating through the engine or even standing in the engine. So Rodec came up with an engine that just didn't carry any water. Now, apparently, Goddard either cannot get it in reverse, a crew rushing down there to try to push him back. They could stay in competition if they got him back very quickly. Now, they're trying to adjust the linkage to get that car out of a forward gear and into reverse. You see Jim Johnson testing it. It's still in a forward gear. This is the Canadian. Back at the line, looking down track, is Jeff Goddard saying, hey, get me the line. I could get a gift here. It could be early Christmas. Now Goddard waiting, and here comes the Canadian, Jim Johnson. I think this crowd is made up of maybe 25-30% Canadians, and they love it. Boy, are they loyal drag racing fans. So getting back on time is Jim Johnson. His tires certainly have cooled off, but this track appears to be so good. You wonder if the Pro Comp cars even need the burnout. Very, very tricky racetrack, however. The initial grip right up the starting line is excellent. It's a concrete launch surface, but they only go about 20 feet, and suddenly they have to make a transition to asphalt, and that has been very tricky, especially in top fuel and funny car. The Pro Comps don't seem to be bothered by it at all. So it's the United States, Washington State to be exact, in the near lane. In the far lane, it's Canada, the province of Alberta. Jim Johnson. They're ready. And it's a beautiful start by both drivers. The Washington car appears to be running away on the big end, and who does? At the far into the racetrack, 1,320 feet away. The electronic computer tells us, even though we already knew, that it was Jeff Goddard, the blue car in the near lane from Olympia, Washington. The start did not appear to be a factor, both on time, and boy, they are just about even until mid-course. And the Donovan engine of Jeff Goddard apparently producing more horsepower than the Chevrolet-style Rodak. And he outpowers him in a beautiful 6.62 is the time for Jeff Goddard. I believe that's the quickest he's ever run at 204 miles an hour. The losing time is 6:88 at 200. And the beat goes on as the next pair moves into the burnout area. And in the near lane, it will be from Santa Clara, California, Don Clark. Clark with really an ancient power plant, an iron 392 Chrysler from the middle 50s when Chrysler Corporation offered those in the behemoths of that era. And they really got drag racing off the ground as far as the fuel classes were concerned, and now there's so many better power plants available, much, much stronger. And here you see Don Clark's lady backing him up, keeping him in those burnout tracks. If he does not back up in the exact same tracks he burned out, there's no sense doing it. That's where the track is at its very best. If you were to put your hand on that tire pin right now, it would be warm to the touch, quite warm. Up against Don Clark from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, is Kenny Sitko. Here's Sitko, and he is in the far lane. And he has got some smoke coming off that motor. I believe the starting line crew has shut him off. They have apparently some mechanical problems. It would have been dangerous for him to make this run. He could have got oil on the tires and been upside down before he knew it. So it is an early Christmas for Don Clark of Santa Clara, California, as he will make a bye run. A gift, really. He could lose, however, should he touch that center line. You can be disqualified on a single. And now a lot of oily smoke coming out of Don Clark's engine, and he better get the parachute out. There it is. This is a very long racetrack, one of the longest ones on the circuit, just about a mile from starting line to finish line. So the parachute is not quite the factor it could be on some of the shorter courses. Okay, you see Clark leaving very hard, the tires wrinkling up as they should. There are only about 4 pounds of air in these 17-inch wide tires. The car shaking, vibrating just a little bit as the tires try to break loose and can't. And suddenly the motor's starting to give Clark a warning. It appears to be just water. A water cap blowing off the back of the cylinder head there and giving us a rooster tail off the Pro Comp car of Don Clark. So it will be Don Clark against Jeff Goddard later on in the semifinals, and right now here is the final race in this particular round. And it will be an excitable bunch from Salinas, California. They call themselves the Spaghetti Benders. It's the San Paulo family. Son Steve drives the car, and they will be up against one of the toughest Pro Comp cars in all the Northwest, out of Prineville, Oregon, logger Joey Severance. There's the Spaghetti Benders, and they do get excited. Somebody once said it reminded them of an Italian pit stop. A lot of arm waving, a lot of meaningless signals. They get very, very involved in their Pro Comp racing, and they are really one of the favorites for the first time in national competition here in Kent, Washington. From the lettuce capital of the world, Salinas, California. So the final race in this quarterfinal round of Pro Comp is ready. The engine's being started for Steve San Paulo of Salinas, California, and logger Joey Severance from Prineville, Oregon, wherever that is. He says it's a town of about 65 people. Not even on the map. Here is Joey Severance in the black helmet looking over, the injector being primed. It's not like a carburetor that has a reservoir of fuel. So you have to get the engine running. Then the high-pressure injector pump takes over, and it runs all by itself. So San Paulo first to do the burnout. Apparently an agreement between the two drivers as to who would start first. Severance's engine being one of those Rodaks we talked about earlier. It has no water jackets at all, so he doesn't want to build quite as much heat in his engine as does San Paulo. And here is Severance. A three-time national event champion, won the U.S. Nationals 2 years ago. Stocky, rough and tough logger. Severance glides to a stop. They don't want to bring him to too quickly a stop. They get to bouncing on those balloon-like tires and can actually do damage to the car. Plus, the fuel can surge forward in the tank and cause the engine to die, so they bring him to a nice, gentle stop. This is the first season that reverses have been required in all drag racing cars. Many times in the past, it was a the job of the crew to hand push these cars back to the starting line, but no longer, not in 1980. Much more professional, and certainly it saves a bit of time. Joey Severance has got to be the favorite here based on past performance, but on elapsed time at this particular event, not necessarily so. They're very, very close. Severance qualified at 687, but came up with a much better number in the first round of 6.63. So I'm sure the gamblers in the stands will still ride with Joey Severance here in the near lane over the San Paulo family from California in the far side. They're pre-staged, inching forward, exactly on that starting line. As soon as they're there, the starting system will be activated. And we've got to start. They leave right together. Steve Sanpaulo staying with the favorite Severance for a while anyway. But at the far end of the racetrack, he just out-muscles Sanpaulo. And a 6.65. Tremendous consistency. Pro Comp is the category, and again, it's the semifinals. 4 cars remaining of the 16 that qualified out of some 50 that were entered here at the Fall Nationals, NHRA style. And here's a couple of drivers that are delighted to even get this far. A lot of folks figured especially that Don Clark in the far lane would not even qualify, but here he is in the semis, and he's up against Jerry Goddard. Goddard here in the near lane, the Mr. Rags car, you see. And Goddard posted his career best in the previous round at 6.62 seconds. Clark with a 6.79, so there's some 1700ths of a second apart. You can look for Clark in the far lane to gamble on the Christmas tree a bit, kind of close his eyes and roll the dice, because it may take a whole shot to get by Jerry Goddard. If Goddard engine stays together, that's the way we see it here in the announce booth. Goddard looks like a heavy favorite if he leaves on time and keep it all together. Pre-staged. The top lights indicating they're within staging proximity. They inch forward. The second yellow lights in each lane means stop right there. You're on the starting line. Goddard's in. Clark's in. And it is Clark. He got the whole shot. Goddard better have some horsepower. Can Goddard catch him? He cannot. The biggest upset in Pro Comp history, possibly, as Don Clark, with an old antique cast iron 392 Chrysler engine, goes into the final of Pro Comp. Let's go back and see just how he did it. Look at the whole shot. We said he'd need one, and I think he did that. Just closed his eyes and rolled a 7. Coming out is Don Clark. A 681 for Goddard here in the tower lane is defeated by a slower 6.84. So even though he ran quicker, he snoozed a little bit on the line, and that's all it took for Clark at 684, 191. Here is the king of Pro Comp, Billy Williams. Williams and Kasanjian, the world champion from 1979, won some 6 national events. He is up against the toughest Pro Comp car anywhere in the Northwest region, Joey Severance of Prineville, Oregon. Huge tires. No one ever thought an alcohol car would take this much tire. But year after year, they make more and more horsepower. Dramatically different approaches in the engine department. You're looking at a Rodeck over in the far lane, as we explained earlier, kind of like a Chevrolet. It accepts Chevrolet components, but it's an engine made strictly for drag racing, both car and boat. In the tower lane is the potent dominant of Billy Williams. Williams, about 5'5", very likable guy, and one of the few that has managed to make a living in the Pro Comp category. And to do that, you have to get a lot of wind lights. Billy Williams going up against a former customer of his. It was Williams and Todd Severance, and another hole shot. This time it goes to Joey Severance, but a look back at the Christmas tree shows us a red light. Severance tried the same gamble, but he got snake eyes. And well that he should try, because Williams ran an outstanding 6.61 at 204 to a losing 6.69 for Joey Severance at 203. The engine being started for Billy Williams, the king of Pro Comp, as we go into the final round of this category, which will pit 2 alcohol-burning dragsters against each other heads up. Williams, the reigning world champion, a prohibitive favorite here against an upstart from Santa Clara, California by the name of Don Clark. And I think Clark himself is still in shock, making it into the final round for the first time ever in a big, important NHRA drag race. There's Clark from Santa Clara. And this is a Chevrolet up against a mighty Hemi of Williams and Kasanjian. Now Clark with a real aggressive burnout. If you'll recall, back in the semifinal round, it was Clark's amazing reflexes off the starting line that put him in this position. He needed a whole shot. He got it. Billy Williams, a veteran driver, one of the few who's been able to make a career out of Pro Comp, and sees no reason to go in the more expensive top fuel or funny car. And he's doing as well as he is. Along with his partner Cookie Kasanjian from Beverly Hills, California, they have won a lot of drag races, more than anybody else in the past few years in this category. So it's a pro start, a flash of the final yellow light to green, 0.4 of a second for the drivers to react to it. The number one for world champion Billy Williams. There is no year-long points chase in this category. The World Championship is decided at the final race of the year. Coming up in a month or so at Ontario Motor Speedway, the underdog Chevrolet, the giant killer in the far lane, in the near lane, Mr. Consistency, Mr. Pro Comp, Billy Williams. They are pre-stage. Who will move in first? It is Williams, followed by the Chevrolet and Clark, and another giant hole shot flat. There is a red light back at the starting line. A red light, and the wind goes to drove around him anyway with one of the better times of the event, a 6.61 at 203 miles an hour. Clark slowing to just 189 miles an hour. As we see it again, Clark tried his patented hole shot, but he moved just a little bit too quick. If you can see the Christmas tree between the two cars, there is a red light glowing in Don Clark's lane. But I think there'll be a celebration among that crew tonight anyway. Their first ever final round in a long, long career. Billy Williams, the Pro Comp Full Nationals champion.